This game never fails to weather my waves, and Changli is no exception. She's an incredible character that deals great personal damage, but also uplifts her teammates with her outro skill. When her concerto gauge is full and you proc her outro, she gives your next character 20% fusion damage amplify and 25% resonance liberation amplify for 10 seconds, making her work as a damage dealer that supports your next character. Though most of us just want her to support our family. Emotionally abusive Birdwife can be played in a few different ways, including as a quick swap damage dealer or a standard on-fielder. But I'll go into more details on that later to maximize ad revenue. She has a special normal attack that can be used on the ground or in the air. And after completing the combo, she gains True Sight, which allows her to see into your browser history. Each time she has True Sight active, she can use a special enhanced attack in the air that turns her into a bird. Or, if used on the ground, sounds straight out of the Holy Grail War. Each time she uses her True Sight enhanced attack, she gains a stack of Inflamement, which is just a bar on her forte gauge. And for each stack that she has, her first passive will increase her fusion damage after using her enhanced attack. Aside from the fact that the sound effect makes you come, the damage on her on the ground enhanced attack is stronger than the air one and generates 1 more energy. So I personally try to use that one more, but sometimes you can save time going bird mode. Oh, and as an added bonus for a forte gauge, when you get enough stacks, she takes her clothes off. When you have a full forte gauge and you use a heavy attack, Changli discovers Nuclear Fission. This does huge damage to the enemy and the environment. With her second passive, it gives her a fusion damage bonus and ignores a portion of enemies' defenses. You should use this for swap cancels, since swapping back into Changli with an intro skill will automatically give her True Sight again, so that way you don't overcap. It is literally a rule in the game that you must use her forte circuit attack as you swap off the field. If you don't believe me, look up Changli Rule 34. Changli is also Wuthering Waves' second unofficial Devil May Cry crossover. At first we had the Virgil chair, and now we have Judgment Cut. Gomez? Changli's skill can be used twice, and each time it gives her True Sight. So you want to make sure to use her enhanced basic attack before using her skill a second time. And the final thing that gives her forte gauge is her ultimate, or Resonance Liberation, which gives 4 stacks instantly and deals more damage than Kendrick did to Drake's career. I actually like to open up fights with her ultimate even before buffs, since it's such a high multiplier, followed up by her forte circuit swap cancel, and if you don't know what any of this means, then that's okay, just keep pressing your silly buttons, you're doing great. To recap, the 4 ways to gain forte gauge are 1. Finish an air or ground combo and use her enhanced basic attack. 2. Perform an intro skill, which gives you an enhanced basic attack. 3. Use a resonance skill, which gives you 1 stack of True Sight each for 1 enhanced basic attack each. Or 4. Use her ultimate, which instantly gives you 4 stacks. I'll go into more details on rotations in the team section, but for now, just know that using her skill is a majority of her damage if you're using it often, especially since using her enhanced attacks counts as skill damage, and her ultimate is going to be her second biggest source of damage. When you're leveling her talents, prioritize her skill and forte circuit, then her ultimate, then basic attacks, and lastly, her intro skill. Makua's echoes are about as predictable as the plot of Titanic. In fact, the only thing that's hard to understand about this character is how her hair works. Since she does a lot of damage, you want to use 5-piece Molten Rift to maximize that potential by giving her up to 40% more fusion damage. For the main echo, I use Infernal Rider just because it gives more fusion damage and a basic attack damage bonus as well after the last hit, and it persists through character swaps. So basically, if you don't have full stacks of Inflamement, which is her forte circuit, but you want to swap, you can use Infernal Rider's first 2 hits, wait for the last one to start, and swap off. And when you go back to Changli, she'll catch that fusion damage bonus on her intro skill and also have gained some energy from the echo itself. It's also like the best multiplier for fusion echoes and gives solid energy, so do with that information what you will. For main stats, you'll want crit rate or damage 4 cost, 2 fusion damage 3 costs, and 2 attack percent 1 costs. Attack percent is okay for one of the 3 costs if you don't have double fusion, but knowing you're gonna farm double fusion for her anyways, because she got you with her smile. That goddamn smile. She's degrading you, by the way. Here's a build graphic for those of you who are visual learners. Like many of you, I also am a visual learner. I actually wouldn't have known about Changli if it wasn't for this interactive map that shows me premium chests. My weapons are up here. You can get plenty of weapons for premium chests, but unfortunately, her best weapons are not 3 stars. Her best weapon is her signature Blazing Brilliance, which gives an attack bonus and a skill damage bonus while having a crit damage main stat. It's not insanely broken or anything in comparison to Emerald of Genesis, the standard 5-star with a crit main stat, attack, and energy regen, but compared to the next best 4-star, there's a pretty big difference. If you have R5 Commando of Conviction, it's the next best thing since you can increase her attack by a huge 30% 50% for 15 seconds after her intro skill. The Lunar Cutter isn't far off from that at R5 as well, giving up to 24% attack when at max stacks. You might be wondering about the Battle Pass sword. Well, Looming Gloss R5 doesn't even stack up to Lunar Cutter at R1. It's definitely not a bad weapon for her, but there's other characters you'd probably rather use it on. Sword number 18 ends up being your best free-to-play option, but honestly all the 4 stars are pretty close. Depending on your team and rotations, these rankings can change, but here's a chart showcasing what you can expect for different Changli weapons at different ranks. Not all the weapons on this chart were things that I mentioned in this section, so if you had any questions about any of them, hopefully this chart will clear things up. If they keep making characters like this, I think it's actually Rover for us. Anyways, Changli has quite a few synergies. Now, honestly, not the most in the game, and she's definitely a character that's going to improve more with more characters that come out. However, even right now, she's very strong, and I want to showcase some of the best characters that I've played with her and show you kind of what I do for her rotation. So let's get started. First scene that I want to showcase to you guys is actually Changli, Havoc Rover, and Verena. And now, Verena is kind of a shoo-in for a lot of different characters. For example, you can also use Genshin here if you have a bunch of enemies that need to be grouped up in the Tower of Adversity. You could just throw her in there and she'll group everything up all at once. Or you can use Baishi here if you don't have access to Verena or to Genshin. But what makes this team so good is you have so much burst in your swaps. Changli is a character that can be swapped in and out of field very frequently and actually can benefit your team a lot with damage as she's leaving and swap cancels. It'll save you a lot of time and help you output a lot of damage. Now, Havoc Rover can be played on field with her enhanced state, but she also does a lot of damage on her regular skill, and then going into her enhanced state and doing that skill also is great. And then her ultimate is also really, really strong. It's a really high damage nuke. And Dreamless after her ultimate is also sort of an AoE nuke. Changli also has lots of nukes, so you can basically swap between these characters, and I'll showcase this in a minute. First off, let me tell you guys about some of her other teams. Now, you can basically just replace Havoc Rover with Encore. This is the synergy that a lot of people were talking about being the best one, because Encore is one of the best DPS in the game, being a fusion DPS, and Changli actually buffs fusion DPS with her outro skill by giving a fusion damage amplify and resonance liberation damage amplify as well. This is one of the same reasons she works so well with Havoc Rover, as she gives a resonance liberation damage amplify even if the fusion damage doesn't really do anything. And the benefit of Encore is that she can use that fusion damage one specifically. However, one thing I will say about this team is that if you don't know how to play Encore, it actually doesn't perform as well as some of the other teams on this list. Yes, Encore looks like the best character on paper, but Changli actually wants a lot of field time, and so does Encore. And if you're swapping between them, it can get a little finicky on how you actually play them. If you play Encore really well and you understand how the character works and you get to know how Changli works, this is one of her better teams. But for players who don't play a lot of Encore or don't understand Encore's kit, I actually highly recommend a Havoc Rover team instead. You can also run her in a team with Jinxi. Both Changli and Jinxi do a lot of ultimate nuke damage, and because of that, when Changli increases resonance liberation damage, if you use if you use the thing with Jinxi, she can do a fair bit more damage, but also Changli just also does a lot of nuke damage as well. Realistically, what I'm seeing is a lot of quick swappable characters that deal a lot of really, really high damage all at once, working pretty well with each other. Now, this can also be Verena, and this can also be Genshin, but I'm just telling you that Baishi is an option. And overall, these two characters actually worked pretty well together. Now, I think we're at this weird point in Wuthering Waves where there's not a lot of direct synergies with characters, and it's just best to run characters that both do a lot of damage and then interchange them, while some of them can take advantage of some of the buffs. And that's kind of what this team does. Now, I tried Morphe. I found that the damage I dealt with this character overall was just not that insane. And Chichi can be a decent nuke character with her ultimate, but in general, it's just basically always going to be better to run Havoc Rover. And on top of that, you can also, unless you have macros for Chichi or you know the tech, for the average player, Havoc Rover is going to be better. I also did a clear with Yang Yang, and she was also decent, mostly because she was battering Changli. But this is my number one, just felt the easiest to play, especially if you have skill issue. It's so easy and forgiving to play this team and swap to the wrong character. Oh no, on the wrong character, you just swap back, and it's not a huge deal, and it doesn't do anything to you. Anyways, let me show you how this team works. So I'm not going to show you guys the full clear because honestly, I mean, there's 1,000 full clear clips that are playing throughout this video. And also, I don't really want to waste all that time, and I'm really bad at yapping for that long. So what I like to do with Changli is actually open up with her ultimate. And what that's going to do is instantly nuke for a bunch of damage and give 4 stacks, which allows us to use our enhanced heavy attack and swap to another character and swap cancel to save a second or two. And that's all this team is going to be, is a bunch of swaps. That way you can save a bunch of time and just use all of the animations that are going on to do maximum damage while swapping to other characters and getting a bunch of utility out of them. We're going to start with Changli. We're going to ultimate, and right off the bat, we're going to get 4 stacks. We're going to use those and swap into Verena. We're going to try to dodge that guy, proc Verena's outro skill, swap back into Changli. And now we have both the intro for Changli, but we also get the 2 skills, which will give us a bunch of True Sight stacks. 1, 2, We're gonna start the third one, swap the Havoc Rover just to finish them off. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and use her ultimate and Dreamless. Pump back into Changli, get the last true stat, or the true sight stack. We're gonna use that, swap off. Gains a Havoc Rover, we're gonna use our skill, use our what's it called, our enhanced state. And then go back into Changli. We can use Changli's ultimate, give us 4 stacks. We can use this, go back into Verena again, and just, it's a lot of just like swap canceling to maximize your damage and field, lessen field time for your characters. It works out pretty well. It's pretty good. We can use skill again here. We can use ultimate and Dreamless, and we can cancel Dreamless by swapping into Changli. More True Sight. It is basically just a rinse and repeat of this. That way you can really maximize characters' damage for lack of field time. And to be honest, it's just such a forgiving team. Like, you don't have to be good at it to play it and get good results. To be honest, I'm not even sure that I explained that the best, but yeah, just do lots of swaps and you'll be fine. Smile. That's why I say it's really forgiving, because you don't even really have to follow any sort of strict rotation with that team to get good results. Havoc Rover and Changli both just do so much damage. Her with the Resonance Liberation, Changli gives the Amplify, the Resonance Liberation. Verena's gonna buff both of them, and both of them have pretty short cooldowns with swappable abilities and Dreamless and all that. It's just really easy to play, and I really like that team. Next up, you better give your bank account a call, because they're gonna want to know where all your money went. If you made it to this part in the video, you either are just enjoying the video or you're mentally ill, or both. You know what? Good for you. Changli might be my first ever completely maxed character in Wuthering Waves, if I wasn't free to play. But just maybe you want more copies of her or her weapon, and that's understandable. After all, they put her waves right where we want to weather. Her first sequence node increases her skill and all enhanced attack damage, and also increases resistance to interruption. It's honestly not a huge damage increase, but it helps. Her second sequence node makes enflammement stacks give her 25% crit rate for 8 seconds, which is a solid crit rate boost and means she'll basically always have it. Her S3 increases her ultimate damage by 80%, and S4 is a solid support ability that gives your whole team 20% attack for 30 seconds after she casts her intro skill. The S5, though, this is where she actually starts getting decent bonuses. Her 4-stack heavy attack gets a 50% multiplier increase and a 50% damage increase, which really ups her damage output. And lastly, S6 gives her 40% more defense ignore on her skills, which also affects her enhanced attacks. The defense ignore also applies to her 4-stack heavy attack and her ultimate, which is another ridiculous power boost. Now, I know what you're thinking. Surely you're all thinking, wow, Brax, for around $1,000, S6 Changli sounds like such a steal. Look, I'm gonna be honest, she's fine at S0, and her S1 and S2 don't really add a ton of value compared to her last sequence nodes, so I wouldn't go for those. If anything, I'd grab her weapon so you can use your Emerald of Genesis on another character simultaneously, especially since her weapon is a massive upgrade from the 4-star weapons. Here's sort of an example of what to expect from sequence nodes. But that graph can't stop me because I can't read.